Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Vince Rocco in New York, so let's get right to what everyone is talking about. Today on the show, we dive into a simple but powerful idea. Reputation is what arrives before you do. Long before you shake a hand, speak a word, or present your credentials, people already have an impression of who you are. That impression, fair or not, shapes how they listen to you, trust you, and decide whether they want to work with you. Whether you're a real estate professional competing in a crowded market, an entrepreneur trying to stand out, or simply someone navigating relationships and opportunities, your reputation is the silent ambassador that speaks on your behalf. And in today's hyper-connected world where information and misinformation travels at lightning speed, reputation doesn't just matter, it can be the difference between doors opening or closing before you even arrive. In this episode, we're going to break down how reputations are built, intentionally or by default, why they carry more weight than ever, and what you can do to shape yours with purpose. We'll uncover strategies to make sure the story people tell about you matches the one you want told. So let's get into it. And on set with me today here are Jared Anton from Brown Harris Stevens, Ben Weilich from Brown Harris Stevens, and the one and only CEO of Brown Harris Stevens, Bess Friedman. And they join me now to discuss. But first, let me welcome my listeners and viewers from across the United States and all around the globe. This is Talking New York Real Estate. So let's go behind the headlines and inside real estate, the state of our industry.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So today we are going to talk about reputation. I also like to say recognition, being memorable. Ask yourself every day, what is your why, who you are, and we'll kind of include all of that in our conversation today because, as I said in the opening, your reputation is definitely something that arrives in a room way before you do, okay? So, Bess, I want to start with you because you are the reason we're talking about this today because you wrote an article or recently about this. And you're quoted saying, the reason you chose this that's me. In our business and in everything, reputation is essential.
Yeah.
Okay, reputation is essential. It is what arrives in the room before you do. So how do you want to show up, and can we do this the right way? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? Because it was important to me when I was reading that and listening to you, because I feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important in a business sense and what we do in real estate, obviously, because agents will work with you or choose not to if they think, you're lying or you're not doing the right thing or you're not delivering offers or you're not on time, which is, so important to be punctual and all those things. Or if you're that person that does return phone calls and does everything the right way, then people do want to work with you. So reputation in our business is essential. But it's also important in your personal life too, right? Your friendships that you make or break depend on it. And so I think a brand is a promise, and we are our own brands, right? Each of us here, like our people, our friends know us, our family know us for what we represent, and what we do regularly is our trust and our reputation. And I don't think there's anything more important than that.
You also say our purpose is taking care of people, emotionally aligned, invested in the process. I know it opens something up and enlarges who we are, and that's how we think about all of this in our company. And, I've spent, 23 years here saying we are family, and we look out for each other and we support each other. How does that work in a large organization when some people don't really necessarily understand what reputation is?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a community here. We're lucky because Brown Harris Stevens is a private company and, everybody's gotten to know each other. But people need to be seen, and agents and execs and admins, everybody that works here, they want to be seen. They want to matter. They have a purpose. They matter just as much as everybody else does. So we try to lean into that as much as we can. So when an agent comes in, it's not just about the deal that they're working on. It's, my mom passed away, or I'm going through a divorce, or I just met a new person that I'm really excited about, or I just had a baby. There's somebody in our office that just had twins. And, you have to, they're all of that. They're not just the deals they're doing, they are people. And so we see that more than anything, and we care about them, and we work with them. And I think that's where Brown Harris Stevens is singular in what we do. We do sell real estate, of course, but we see our agents and our community for who they are and lean into that and take care of them. And that's what makes me feel the most privileged about this job. And working with, everybody here around this table, it's a gift.
I totally agree with you. And I think, reputation is something. And Ben, you and I were talking about this, before air. When you hear the word, the phrase reputation arrives before you do, how do you think other agents in our industry, not only here at Brown Harris, but just in our industry as people and as professionals, how do you think they think about this, or do they? And how do they relate to, I should probably have a better reputation because maybe it will help me do better at work, et cetera, et cetera. Do most agents put any thought to this?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is it's generally first comes as a feeling and a sensation inside the body. And I think one of the best ways to describe that would be this feeling of admiration towards someone. So it's not only just, are they a good person to work with? Because I think all those reasons are tremendously important that, Bess mentioned as well. But people generally in their personal lives and in their professional want to be surrounded by people who are admired people in all walks of life. And it makes a transaction much more enjoyable. It makes an experience because we're experiencing people and we're spending a lot of time with people, both at work and for agents, between each other and the community. So how can you be one of those admired people that people want to go to and be around? And sometimes it comes from the little things, not necessarily like trying to force it, or the intentionality and some of those aspects behind it.
Jared, what are your thoughts on that? And also taking it one step further, we talk about in our industry, and I have a big to-do about transactional agents versus relationship agents. And when I'm teaching real estate, I try and hone in on that and really focus on that. So when it comes to reputation, and whether you're transactional or relationship driven, what are your thoughts, wrapped around all of that?
Yeah. So first of all, it's an honor to be here with all of you guys, and thank you, Beth, for the opportunity here. Reputation is everything, right? And it's something that takes a lifetime to build and, an instant to ruin. So to me, it is someone's most important currency. And I don't know how many people consciously think about their reputation, and I don't know how often it is sort of in that, well, how is this going to impact me, or how is this going to come back to me? But it's something that I think about. I don't think about it all the time, but it is certainly something that has become in my sense of awareness. And I have seen through this transition over the last couple of months how my personal reputation is out there in a positive way and how that precedes you. So from an agent perspective, I think the important thing is, what is your reputation? And there's an element also of your associations that come into play there too. So reputation can come from a couple different places. It's a lot that's soft skills. People need to work with someone who's going to be responsive. They need someone who's going to make sure that they're putting their needs above their own, right? And that goes into where we talk all about that relationship style of sales. And that's important. That speaks volumes. Success and results also matter too. So are you a listing agent that traditionally sells your properties quicker than others? Are you a listing agent that traditionally sells for a higher percentage of the asking price? If you are, then talk about that. Advertise that. right? Have part of your reputation be how you deliver success more so than others, because when clients want to hire an agent, they don't care necessarily the accolades that you have. They want to understand the results. And agents often use the accolades, which does build a certain perception or reputation, but it is an indirect approach to getting to what the clients actually want, which is, if I hire you, what results are you going to deliver for me? Right. I don't want to just be another sale in your accolade. I want to be an incredibly valuable transaction that's sold quicker for more money. So if agents start using their reputation that way, I think that's a win-win. So to sum it up, it's about merging the relationship style with the transactional. So how do you take the success points that you've had in every given transaction and sum that up into a reputation of you delivering more value than your competitors? And how do you have a reputation on the interpersonal side of over-communicating, of being responsive, of delivering and exceeding what you promised? And if you can marry those two, you're unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, for example, not to interrupt, but we talk about this a lot. Agents oftentimes will have these awards and they send out a big photo of themselves saying top 10 and
pat on my back.
Yeah, and for me, if I own an apartment and I get that, I don't know this agent.
Right.
And I'm not your mom, so I don't care. So, it doesn't matter to me. I want to know, what can you do for me? Communication is with the listener. My apartment is here. What's the value? Why is it the value? What's happened in the market? Give me information that helps me, and that will help, everybody. So I think it's such a good point.
So I had awards on my signature for like all of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Until I realized, like, in the conversations with clients, like, they don't care.
Right.
Like, unless what's in it for me?
Nor do they understand it. I used to do the same thing, and I pulled it off, because people are like, well, what does that mean?
Right.
It's
I
just
don't want
too
them to
much. You see
focus
people
on
have
it.
a signature and they have like 25 awards under it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, if you're great, you just are. You just don't need to
Look
say
at
it.
me.
Yeah, look at me, Ma.
But hold on, I will say this. We're going to drop a little prop, and yes, we're going to give Greg a shout out here, because Greg, our chief economist, and I were looking at some data the other week. And if we compare the firms in our marketplace that are doing a traditional sales process, BHS is selling our listings quicker and for a higher percentage of asking price than any other competitor in our market doing a traditional sales cycle. So that's pretty awesome. And that, again, speaks to, again, the results and why that's important for a seller to
That's
listen
a
to us.
talking point that you do want to share with people because it's substantive. Yeah.
Extremely. Bess, I want to ask you, though, based on everything that you just said here, do you think reputation today carries more weight than it did, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago? Is it more important that we hone in on who we are and how we want to present ourselves more today than ever before?
I think it's always important. It was important 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I think it's, there's no time in life where you wouldn't think that it's important. It could be, during World War II, up to today, it's everything. It matters. I mean, so much has changed because of social media and information that gets out there quicker. And so, I mean, we have to be careful of that. But I think it's so important to value what you say and make sure that your words and actions are consistent. That equals responsible. If you say one thing and you do the other, then people can't rely on you, they don't trust you, and you have a bad reputation. So I think that's as important today as it was 10 years ago. I don't think that's changed.
But when people need to multitask maybe today more than ever before, right, guys? I mean, it's kind of like I do better personally when I have more than one thing to do.
You like to cram. You get that essay done the night before.
Going back to college days, exactly. Last minute, read it, memorize it, cram, whatever. I function better when I have more than one thing to do. I find, though, that in our industry sometimes that agents really kind of become myopic and they think about only one thing, or they focus on one thing, and I say, no, you have to open it up and become a little more,
be able to multitask.
And multitask, but how do you think that affects them, as far as, forming their reputations or changing their reputations? So we all need to work on ourselves regularly and update, right, as we talked about before the show, and figure out who we are, right?
I think the biggest thing is what you hit on at the top of the show is knowing your why and having, what Bess was saying, those other interests in life, because the myopic focus on the one thing can be good, but it can also kind of come and hurt you. The myopic focus on just doing business to do more business, and that's all I am, is a real estate agent who does more business. Like, no one wants to talk to that person.
Generally not.
Right. But, like we were talking before the show, and, I'm really excited about, running my marathon this weekend with my wife and spending the time with my kids and like that
26 miles.
whole
22.
experience.
26.2.
And so what happens at work, I can be loose, not attached to the outcome, because one of the things about reputation is you also have to be confident enough with who you are, like Beth said,
Correct.
where those things that you can't control, we think we can control a lot, and you can control the controllables, but there's going to be a lot of things outside of your control that you also have to have those other things going on. You have to know your why, because when things do come up or bad information travels faster than it should because of social media or whatever the case might be.
It's dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be confident in, in who you are. So that's where it comes down to that mix between personal and professional is so important. And some people think it's fluffy because it doesn't really tie to actual business. But it really is quite important. Yeah.
Fluffy works. Yeah. Listen, the personal experience, many of them, but because of social media, reputation is formed and created and can be long lasting. And many years ago when my dog was still alive, I remember going on a listing presentation and I'm sitting in front of this couple in their very lovely apartment and, we're talking away and all of a sudden the wife says to me, it seems like you and your dog have a great relationship. And I'm thinking, how does she know I have a dog? She don't know me.
Yeah.
This is brand new. It was a referral, blah, blah, blah. And so I kind of went with it. And she said, you look a little confused, Vince. I said, well, I'm just wondering how you know Jet. And she said, well, because I follow you on social media. And your reputation on social media.
Of course. What you put out there. That's why I say that I have kids who I'm like, be careful what you put out there because it's there forever. People will see it and know it. So be cautious about those things.
But I would caution that social media is more perception than reputation.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. We're going to talk about that, but 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's really important because obviously what you see on social media is not always real. But for those you have a relationship with, or at least some semblance where they have, the ability to put a stake in the ground, then it helps continue to evolve your reputation. But that's a really important distinction.
How can you cross that chasm of taking the right perception and those people that you have that reputation with on social media to have more people feeling that? I'm just like throwing that out there.
So hard to.
No, right.
You don't have, like you said, the only thing you have control over is yourself and how you react to things, right? Those are the only things really you can control. And so social media, it can be, it's a mixed bag. You can't really, somebody could lie, they could put something out there, they could say mean things. That's why my biggest piece of advice, don't read the comments. I never read the comments ever. They're always, I just don't do it. I'm not.
You're so right.
I never regret going to the gym, but I almost always regret looking at reels or being on social too long. It's a waste of your time, I think. This is my opinion.
Indeed, and we're going to talk a lot more about that after the break. These powerhouses will come right back. This is Talking New York Real Estate on a very busy Tuesday morning. We're coming back soon. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Brian Scott Cohen, one of the top loan originators in the country and the #1 mortgage originator at Guaranteed Rate Infinity. Guaranteed Rate Infinity arguably has the most advanced tech in the industry. Our completely digital loan process makes it easy and efficient for homeowners. From a 15-minute pre-approval to the digital application and through closing. My team and I would love to help you get into the home of your dreams.
Residential and commercial closings to litigation, Romer DeBoss is your full-service real estate law firm. We blend big firm knowledge with boutique-level attention, delivering outcomes that exceed every expectation. Contact us at romerdeboss.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back. And I just wanted to end, the last block by saying that that woman, Mary, her name was, the seller that I talked to, she was right about my reputation with my beloved dog at the time. And obviously I got the listing and obviously we worked well together and blah, blah, blah. So reputation does work. I want to ask you guys, though, can you share a moment when your reputation helped you open the door before you even stepped in the room? I mean, thinking that you were going to go to see somebody, talk to somebody, or you had to, attend a function, and you were concerned about your reputation, or how do you think that because of who you are, and the three of you, in my opinion, have tremendous reputations, how has it opened the door?
Well, I can just...
One example.
I'll give you an example of something that because, Jared and Ben are new. We hired them recently. It's been a few months, and
Yay.
they're executives, and they were at another firm. And their reputation is spotless and, not perfect, but so many agents knew them, liked them, revered them. Executives knew who they were. It was very positive. So when I met with them, not knowing everything, but the more that I, dug and started to ask questions, I found out all these good things about them, which inspired me even further to want to hire them. So that not only opened the door, but, got both of them here because they built their reputations in a really good way. It doesn't mean perfect, because there's going to be
No.
people who don't like you, and that is okay.
That's human nature.
That's human. I hope there's some people I hope don't like me. That's okay.
Well, that's a stretch.
No, it isn't. There's some people that,
No, I'm talking about when it comes to you.
well, you sound like my mom. Who wouldn't like her? She's perfect. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, but you're 100%
Yeah.
correct, and we're going to have conflict or issues or something with people on a regular basis. But I think that helps us grow as individuals and helps us figure out even more. Again, before the show, we were talking about ask yourself every day who you are. Look in that mirror and say, "Who am I? Who am I?" What is your why? Because if you can't figure out for yourself who you are, what your why is, you can't brand yourself and you can't figure out why you are different. And I was talking to Ben before the show. It's not, we have a lot of competition out there, way too much competition. It's a matter of, I'm not better than you, you're not better than the next person. It's why are we different? And
Yeah.
why do people want to work with us or be with us more, better said? Okay, I like being around Jared. I like being around Bess. I like being around Ben, or I don't,
Yeah.
right? And that's the difference. So when you know who you are, I think you could relate differently.
Well, it's also not who you are, but who do I want to be?
that,
Because the question is, it's like you can stay in a hotel room and say, wow, I really like this robe, and I can just throw it in my suitcase and nobody will notice. But you can also say, look, I could pay for this, and at night I go to sleep, and how do I feel about myself? Am I betraying who I am? Do I want to have integrity? We have to ask ourselves those questions. And look, we've all done things, nobody's perfect, where we know we were like, I probably wasn't really the best side of myself. I could show up better. And so those are the questions at night. You say, how did I do today? Did I do the right things today? I kind of didn't here, but I did there. I think at night, that's sort of the questions that you ask yourselves, and you try to strive to do better each day. Because some days you're just going to screw up. We do, we just can't get it right. You're in a bad mindset, but the story you tell yourself is the most important story. And if you can wake up with gratitude, that you can get dressed, you're in your right mind, life is good, everybody's healthy. It's really hard to, complain, I think.
And if the story you're
Correct.
telling yourself is relatively tied to the truth, you're better off. There are people who tell, a totally far off tale.
Well.
But to your point, I think the best thing that you can
yes,
do
there are.
Yeah.
is in that self-reflection moment. Your reputation is not always just about messing up or not messing up, but it's then what do you do in the face of a mistake? As I teach my 7-year-old son, like if you hurt one of your friends or you made one of them upset, go and apologize, make it right, and that's okay. Like that is so much more important, right? It's the feeling of how you leave in others that's often way more important than exactly what was said or what was done. So the fact that you can have enough self-awareness to reflect at whatever point in the day you do, or even if it's the next day or next week, and then being able to take that high road and being able to take that step of going to say, okay, how do I make it right? That's a great way of building that reputation. And sometimes if you've made a mistake and it wasn't done intentionally, but again, we all make mistakes, but then you can go and own it and build on it. That builds your reputation arguably even more than
It
if you didn't
does.
make that mistake in the first place.
Yeah.
If I can jump in and just
Yeah, please.
I think build on both of those there. One of the things I've really enjoyed, whether it's Arthur Brooks, who talks about this a
Love
lot,
him,
or 12-stepper program, different religions. I think one of the common themes is this, idea of resentment and letting go of resentment, because to Bess's point, like you might not be perfect, you might have messed something up with someone, maybe that's coming back to you in a different way. Leading with gratitude, I think, is so important, like she said, but also, there's so many things in this business. A deal doesn't go your way. A client is upset. The emotions are high. Emotions are very high for people. You're dealing with people's homes. So it's very easy to be emotionally charged. But at the end of the day, can you self-reflect, like Beth said, and Ray, one of our producers here, loves me quoting Socrates, the unexamined life is one not worth living.
Yeah.
Right? But if you can let go of any of that resentment, right? I think what Arthur Brooks talks about is, it's letting go of the rice ball, because that's how monkeys get themselves trapped, in those cages down in South Africa there. So letting go of resentment, that's a whole separate story. But, I think really builds on that too, because again, this goes in line, those small things you do throughout your day where it's congruent, you have to be practicing and doing all those things to actually do that.
And when I tell people who say, well, I really don't understand what reputation is or how I define my reputation, and I say, is it something that you're intentionally building within, or are you basing your reputation on what other people may think of you? Now, you all touched on that before. I mean, we don't always like everybody, and sometimes you might not have a great thought about somebody, but what does it really come down to? What you build within, or what other people say about you? I mean, I like when people say, hey, Vince, you're a great guy and you got a great reputation out there. But I don't hang on that, because I know that you recognize that based on what I've worked on and what I've done individually.
But it's not my business what other people think of me. I really honestly don't. It doesn't matter what people think of you, because some people will like you, some people will hate you. They're going to think, I just feel like it's a waste of your mind to focus on that. You have to, for yourself, it's always an inside job, right? Happiness, joy, all those things come from you, what you like, what you do, what you're giving back to. If you think about, oh, he doesn't like me or it's a waste. I don't care what people think of me. I have to know that I'm doing the right things, and the right people that I respect will respect me back. That's what I care about. If somebody I really respect and care about, doesn't respect me or dislikes me or has something to say, that might hurt me or bother me. But otherwise, you got to focus on the things, as I said, that you can control. And so who cares? Don't care what people think about you. I don't think.
Wanting to change someone else's opinion is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah, it's true. Exactly. That's right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because you can't control that. And why should you want to?
Why should you want to?
What I impressive, like in my interactions and dealings with Bess, I mean, one of the super impressive things is that, I mean, you just want to help people no matter what. And I think you emulate more than anybody I've ever met, being able to actually let go of those opinions and still want to help people. It's very like Nelson Mandela-like, and something that's very hard to, hard to get to.
Mandela.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh God. Oh my God.
I was successful in making Bess blush on the podcast.
Yes, you were.
You are memorable today.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Check us out on YouTube.
Yeah.
But truly, that is really something. Like I had a book with Mandela. Like that ability is so hard to come by, and I'm certainly not perfect on it, and I strive, to be more and more like that. So it's just to witness people who do that is very impressive.
No. Well said.
Thank you. What a compliment. Yeah.
What a compliment. And I've known Bess for a bunch of years, and I completely and totally
crazy people.
Agree with that, 100%. How can we effectively, once we figure out what our reputation is, once we, figure out who we are and whatever, how do we get it out there in ways that in our industry, in the real estate industry, how do we get it out in ways where potential sellers recognize us, potential buyers recognize us, landlords, renters, tenants, whatever, industry professionals? I also think, and I know you agree, it's also important for all of us in this industry to love your co-broker. Okay, and Jared and I have talked about this many times.
So important.
Love your co-broker, have that reputation not only with your clients but with your colleagues. Yeah. Whether within, the company you work for or outside, because that, I think, really stamps who you are. Of
course. I mean, they're like your own clients. When other colleagues from every firm, whether it's Douglas Salomon or Cork, whatever company it is, they want to work with you. It's good because they're going to let you see the listing first. They're going to, when you put an offer in, they're going to pick up your phone call. Right? It's all of those things. I think that's such an important piece. You want to
I totally agree. I'm doing a deal with somebody from another company that I'm trying to recruit here, because all of the things we're talking about, he has in spades. I mean, he's just on top of everything,
Yeah.
smart, knowledgeable, whatever. And boy, I'm thinking, boy, this is really about love your co-broker. I would do a deal with this guy anytime, anywhere.
But you see, that's good. You want to do business with
I
him, and
want
that's
to.
what you want to do. And I think agents who want to build their business, most agents, the really successful ones, you know how they build it? It's not, social media. It's referrals, because they do a great job for John. John calls his best friend and then it's like, it just builds and builds and builds. That's how agents build their business. It's their reputation. It's their currency.
And they need to be, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
They need to be popular within the industry too, and not because they're liked, but because they're respected, right? And Beth touched on this, and a mentor of mine would always talk about, like, it's better to be respected than liked if you had to pick one.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would like both, but being respected is arguably more important. So,
Right.
all of that's to say that if you want to be able to do business and you want to advocate best for your buyer or best for your seller, then you need to make sure that you have incredible relationships within this industry, because if you have a lot of listings and people like working with you, they're going to call you and say, hey, Jared, what do you have coming up? Right? And that's going to give you more visibility. Or as Beth said, if you have a buyer and you get into a multiple bid situation, they are going to be more likely to advocate for you. So, Vince, you hit on the nail on the head, that before you can start creating a reputation for yourself, you need to be able to understand, what do you want to be known for? Because if you're not outwardly doing something specifically or consciously or putting out a certain stream of messaging, then others are going to create their own reputation for you, and you're not going to have the ability to author your own reputation.
They're going to tell your story.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to be able to take control and be able to start authoring it. And what's really important is you won't see the results overnight. You won't see them in a month. You won't see them in 6 months. It's going to take years. And too many times we're conditioned as humans to expect this instant gratification, right? And I experienced this firsthand, because a number of years ago, I started, writing these weekly reports. I actually did it starting in COVID, like March, right when things shut down. In fact, we're almost 300 weeks since the start of COVID. We're at 292 weeks right now.
Oh my
yes, because
God.
that's how many rows in my Excel sheet. So,
But who's counting?
Yeah. Oh my God, who's counting?
Jared's counting.
Jared's always counting.
Jared's counting.
there'll be a
of course.
special 300
He'll
week
know
one.
exactly how
Oh
many
my
days
God.
is left in the year.
Yes, of course.
He
He's
always
the
likes to
computer.
remind me.
He was described to me by someone. Oh, you're hiring that Jared, that guy who's like the computer. That's what they call him.
No.
There's your
And
reputation.
and you're Tony Robbins, by the way. Yeah.
Hold on. You must tell Beth, you probably already told Beth what AI stands for.
Oh, Anton Intelligence, of course.
Anton. Before AI.
Before AI, there was Anton Intelligence.
Got it.
My Halloween costume.
I think that's a good one.
I love it.
I
It's
do
a
too.
Great one.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Go ahead.
But anyway, so I started writing these market reports, and it took a year or 2 years. But then people were like, "Oh, I see what you're writing," and like that started crafting sort of that reputation. Over the years, it sort of became a bit more nuanced. But you have to have intentionality behind what you're doing if you want to try to create a reputation. Absent that intentionality, then it's going to be how everyone else perceives you, without any ability for you to stake, put a stake in the sand.
Yes.
Can I?
Yes.
I mean, Jared is my better, smarter, half, and as Beth said, I'm
you're not
the
too
Tony, more the
Robbins.
Tony Robbins side, and I'll go with my football analogy that reputation and real estate, like this is a contact sport.
Yeah.
And
Indeed it is.
you can put all that out there, and then you also, how you are showing up, how you are getting out there in person on the right relationships. Higher tech requires higher touch. The more and more technology that we have, the more we really need to make sure that we have those personal touch points and relationships, because, and this is why I love working with Jared, like, one without the other, it could all break down. But, how do you actually make sure you're getting out there and doing both of those? So.
Yeah. Love that.
Incredible, right? He's so right. How does authenticity, though, and consistency play into building trust and credibility, which goes hand in hand with reputation, or how people perceive you, or how you want to be perceived? So trust, credibility, how important is that?
I mean, they're obviously super important. And, trust, I use this definition over and over again, but the stacking of small moments over time, which is what trust is. And I think they're crucial. Credibility, all of those things. Without them, people aren't going to work with you. And we've all worked with people where we don't feel safe, meaning we don't trust them. There's something in our gut that tells us they're not being honest. They're not looking at you in the eye. Eye contact for me is a big one. Like, I can look at people and I feel a sense of something. I know, and energy. You can feel energy. Have you ever been in a room with someone and it's just you feel like a little creepy, something a little odd? Energy, it matters. Like somebody's vibration. I'm not being all like, woo-woo, but, there is a vibration. Every person has it. And I've met people, you meet people and you're like, you feel this big sense of joy and energy and connection. And you've been around people and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what they're cooking up at home because something's going on. And all of that matters. What you say is one thing, how you feel, all that stuff is so important. At least it matters to me. I care about those things.
When you hear somebody tell a story about you, I think, Bess, you brought this up a minute ago, but, is the story being told accurately about who you are? Because, and if it's not, you need to rewrite that immediately, okay, and fix it because we want to present who we are correctly, not necessarily based on what other people think.
But
right?
you have an opportunity to do that each and every day. And no matter what you do, people are going to tell your story differently, the way that they want. So you have to let go of that and say, go ahead, have fun. If you're, wow, I must be really interesting if you guys are talking about me. Whenever people say, you know what they said about you, go, I don't want to hear about it. Don't tell me, I'm not interested. It doesn't matter to me. It's not paying my mortgage. It doesn't help me with anything. What I care about is how I feel and what I think and my reputation and what I do, how I show up. So what difference does it make? What difference does it make at all? Like if somebody's telling a different story about me.
You are absolutely correct. So in a digital first world in social media as we live in, right? And our online presence affects our reputation positively or negatively. So, and we all know how big social media can be, how fun it could be, how destructive it could be, how political it could be everything you could imagine. How do we fix if you see something negative on social media, or how do we make sure that what we put out there is always positive and always shows who we are?
Can I I have a fun story for this one.
Go ahead.
This is a very practical example. Very early on in my career, my natural being wants to just be like, well, who cares? Let them be or whatever. And I never paid too much attention to all of it until, my first Yelp review, which was from a past tenant a year and a half after they were into their thing. And I had never gone after or getting Yelp reviews or doing anything like that. And she had an issue with her landlord. It was nothing that I did. It was a year and a half later, but she wanted to go and vent on Yelp.
Oh, boy.
And so, and she went on to say, like, he's a huge nerd in the...
I love nerds, by the way. I love a nerd. Take a nerd, a dork, anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think dork.
Nerd and dorks, I love.
I think dork
They rule the world today.
There's not a lot of nerds and dorks that are in prison, so it's a good thing.
We heard that here first. Okay?
The dork was actually the word that she used, but I was like, beside myself, and I went on a tear. And I think within a matter of 48 hours, I ended up getting about 60 reviews from past clients that were 5-star reviews. And she actually felt so embarrassed that she ended up removing the review.
She just called you a nerd, though, right?
Yeah, it was actually a dork. Now that I think about it,
I love both of those. I love nerdy dorks. So,
we're gonna call them nerks.
Yeah, nerds.
Yeah.
So
there you have it.
That's like a very practical. Like, there's how you handle it, interpret it. I think being intentional with what others say about you on social prior to someone else dictating it, like that's a great, example and story. So I made it a point as a part of my business process after that. Like, my admin had a part of a checklist, like we got Yelp and Zillow and all the different types of reviews after a transaction. So, controlling that narrative is not necessarily what you put out there to fight it, but are you taking a regular practice or making it part of your business to have other people also chime in on that?
Social media?
Well, I think it's a matter of creating
for us here a little bit.
it's what you want your story to be. I mean, you have full control over what you put out on your medium. You know, Ben's being able to leverage then the voices of those around you, which is really important because you want to create raving fans, right? You want the people who have experience, that incredible experience that you can create, to be able to share about it, to tell other friends, because that's truly the way that you'll be able to build a long-lasting, recession-proof, sustainable business, is by having your reputation precede you in the business. And some people are selling properties off of social media, yes, but it's the exception, not the rule. The rule is, how do you be able to create that positive association between your name and real estate outcomes? And if you can do that and you can start focusing more on success-oriented marketing, then you can set yourself up. And social media can help, but you want to focus that on converting that digital relationship into a human relationship as quickly as possible, and then putting them through that transaction life cycle where you can then deliver a real-world IRL experience to give them that wonderful thing that gets them to be then that raving fan, and then they can recreate that or tell that, you know, through their digital footprint and their, you know, real-life footprint.
I would argue that some of the digital footprints too, like a job board inside of a company, is still like a social digital footprint, and probably carries with it way more trust than just people putting something on social media, right? So like if you're in business and thinking about those things, don't just think of the traditional stuff, but things like that, you know, a WeChat group, I know has been very successful for people, how you talked about in that, right? It's not just like Instagram and LinkedIn and, you know, there's a lot of other areas that are much higher trust than some of those big ones.
That's a good point. Really good point.
And don't forget the old-fashioned water cooler, especially, you know, inside of your office. So are you an agent that people like to interact with? When people are talking about, you know, other agents and your name gets brought up, are they indexing that as someone favorable? When there's an opportunity for them to collaborate, are you someone that they're thinking of, right? Or, you know, if they're like, I'm doing a deal with so-and-so, and someone says, oh, that person, or, oh, so exciting, I had a great experience. That's so important.
That's you, Vince.
Yeah, well, thank you. But that's, you know, I with the water cooler analogy, it's kind of like sometimes you go to the office and everybody wants to come and talk to you and whatever else. You know there's a reason for that, right? Versus, oh, he's here again. You know?
No, people, they want to talk to people they trust and like and they feel good about.
Correct.
You know?
All right, we have to take another quick break. We're coming right back. One more block to continue this conversation. This is Talking New York Real Estate on the More Network. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Dylan Pachulik, CEO of XL Real Property Management, New York's most trusted name in luxury property management since 2012. We specialize in managing individual apartments, townhouses, and rental buildings held by absentee owners. We maintain our properties with the highest standards of quality and service so that owners can choose a hassle-free approach to real estate investing. Rented or owner-occupied, we handle it all. For more information, contact us at xl-rpm.com.
Okay, we are back. So, you can tell we have a lot of fun here.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted to reset their reputation based on everything we talked about, where should they begin? There are people who I am convinced realize that maybe their reputation is not where it should be for a whole host of reasons. But people keep saying to them, maybe we need to fix this or clean this up or change a little bit, be a little more accommodating, accepting. Where do they begin?
I mean,
because when you ask people to do
Yeah.
self-analysis, it's kind of like whatever.
Well, it's hard. I think what Jared said about his son is important. You know, when you make a mistake or when you're operating the wrong way, if you can be accountable and own that, people almost are like, wow, they owned their mistake and they want to reset. I think it's like if you make a mistake and you say, I'm sorry, I want to do things better and I want to, then you actually work in that direction. You know, you show up the way that you say you're going to, then you can build back your reputation and credibility. But you have to own the things that you did wrong. You can't just gloss over it or pretend it didn't happen or deny it and refute it. Because if you do that, you're almost in a bigger deficit. So I think that's a way that you can start to improve. Because look, I make mistakes. We all make them. But when you make them, if you say, oh, God, I screwed that one up. Why'd I do that? People are like, it's refreshing because it's a very human, authentic piece of who we are. we don't always do everything right. That's how we learn. You know, we learn from the stuff we do wrong.
I always say own it, whatever it is.
It's hard
you
to
wanna
own it.
It's very hard to own it, but if you want to go through self-assessment
It
and
feels
figure
good,
out,
though.
it does.
Feels
you have
good.
to own it, work on it, and ultimately it feels good because you change, I like to say, for the better.
That's right.
The cover-up is often way worse than the mistake, right?
Well, of course it is.
And this is where, again, most of the interpersonal conflict comes down to communication. Inexistent, ineffective, or untimely communication. So the reputation is incredibly hard. If you have a good reputation, you can ruin it in an instant. If you have a bad reputation, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's impossible to turn around, but it is time-consuming, and it takes a lot of effort and consistency. And the deeper or more extensive that the negative reputation holds, the more time it's going to take to turn around, because people may see a light at the end of the tunnel and be like, okay, he's starting to own it and take mistakes, but they're going to be incredibly weary or cautious that, well, there's years of this other, experience. So is it really going to hold and stick? So it's going to take you that time to earn that trust back, increment by increment, centimeter by centimeter. And that's the hard piece. And then it's being able to stick with it that truly proves that you've turned that corner more than just doing the right thing a small number of times.
Reset yourself to reset your or to reset your reputation, I'd say. So, with that, I think the challenging thing some people might be hearing is, well, what do I actually do, right? Because I do have some of these negative things out there. I think you are, the 5 closest people you surround yourself with regularly. So who are you choosing to surround yourself with, and what are those influences on your life? Because it's going to start moving you in that
Because they'll call
direction.
you for what you are, those 5 people, whatever, right?
They'll either call you or you will have a calling to them to be a
Right.
better version of yourself. And, there was a top performer I was working with recently, remain nameless, and you could see all the detrimental behavior really from being, call it narcissism, call it ego. There's a lot, of that type of stuff
A
that
lot of
goes around
narcissism.
in our business. And you could just see how detrimental it was to the team members, like live, in person. But to Bess's points earlier, like not judging them, not, taking that away, trying to meet them where they're at, they were receptive to what I was saying. And by being encouraging about them for the good things that they were doing, and then being able to deliver that information, like you said, you watch from meeting to meeting, their behavior change. And I actually thought this was someone who was incapable of it. So like that really taught me, something, right? And that's who are you surrounding yourself with to be able to, I think, start to shift and move that needle and reset yourself.
I think, you guys are familiar with David Brooks. He wrote the book, The Road to Character. He had another book called The Second Mountain. And he's known to be a little bit arrogant, smug, kind of a jerky guy, writer, brilliant. I like him so much. But The Second Mountain was all about that like he sort of had this reflection of himself and what he was caring about, what he was valuing, and how, and he started to shift, and he owned a lot of his mistakes. And it was really refreshing about, how there's always opportunity to change and improve. And we should never give up on that.
Right.
Human beings were complicated, emotions, all those things, but I think if you remember, the important piece is that love is learned. It's not innate. People think you come out of the womb and you just know what love is. It's like anything. You learn it from your parents, from your teachers, from your environment. And by the same accord, you learn hate. You can learn hate. So we have to be careful and think about all of those things.
Take
and hopefully
my implicit bias class.
Yeah.
It all comes
Yeah.
back around to the Buddha and loving kindness. in
Yeah,
all
I mean, it
situations.
really,
100%. But
love
you're-
is a big one.
But you're absolutely correct. But I want to ask you too, Bess, because I grew up at IBM before I became a real estate agent. We had quota every year. I was in sales. Our managers gave us quota every year. So because of that, we had to figure out our goals and write our goals down every year to make that or achieve that quota at the end of the year, and make that 100% pin or 100% club,
Yeah, that's a lot
a
of
trip,
pressure.
whatever. A lot of pressure. But so when we want to talk to people or advise people on how they should align their reputation with their goals, because you can't have the goals win out, because then maybe the reputation isn't going to be as smooth or as nice or as whatever. How do we keep that all in line? Because we should all in the real estate industry have lofty goals.
Yeah.
You know, how many deals you want to do a year, how many, whatever. But we want to make sure that we keep our reputation intact too. How hard is that for agents to do?
I don't think it's that hard. I think you have to, be honest with yourself about what your goals are, and look, we all know our shortcomings. I know at nighttime, I am not going to be effective in communicating and doing things because I don't work well at night, and I know I'm not going to be able to accomplish those things. But I know at 5 a.m., I can do a lot of things. So be honest about who you are and what your limits are and what you think you can really accomplish. If you think you can sell 5 things and you're really going to show up at the events that you're going to show up, if you can be honest with yourself, you can put those goals down and make sure what you're planning and what you do are consistent. And the other thing I would say, not to be Oprah with all this book stuff, but M. Scott Peck's The Road Less Traveled, where he talks about delaying gratification, is one of the most important tenets in life, because if you put the garbage out before you sit down and eat popcorn and watch The Sopranos, which I love to do, you get your...
Put the garbage out of The Sopranos?
Yeah.
Tomato.
Good question.
But, if you you do the hard stuff first. You know what I mean?
Right.
I do your workout before you sit down and have breakfast. I think all of those things are going to help you to achieve your goals.
Well said.
Right.
I mean, because they are important.
Yes.
In our life.
There's a real interesting dichotomy too, just to piggyback on what Bess was saying there. I've seen a lot of people constantly just overreaching way too far on those goals, and there's too big of a gap. And the stress, the burnout, just everything that creates, maybe that gap is all financially or money driven and might be for the wrong reasons.
Correct.
That creates a crazy amount of undue stress, and that's everything what Bess, talked about. So you want to set goals that are going to push you, and there's something called proximal development, which is that layer, right after where your core competencies are, not 10 layers out from that. And that's what's going to push you to the right level to grow to next. It's the same thing as, if you're running, going from a 9-minute mile to an 850 mile, not a 9-minute to a 6-minute mile, right? So that proximal zone where you're going to get the improvement. And too many people in this business, I see just those way overreaching goals, and it's constantly this, state of stress in order to try and achieve that. Oh, and then they're let down when they're not hitting them too, and that's not good.
And that doesn't allow, this is where I'll channel my inner Ben here. He has rubbed off on me over the years. But if you're setting these lofty goals that are just unrealistic, then that stress is going to manifest in ways that makes you show up not your true self, right? And that's going to affect your reputation, because you're now, to tie this back to relationship versus transactional, you're now going to be forced to, by your own creation, to try to have that transactional mindset. Vince, to your story at IBM, like if you were at 96% a quota and there's 2 weeks left of the year, you're going to try to force a sale that in your heart of hearts, halfway through the year, you may not have forced because it wasn't right. So this is where you lose sort of that true being, and this is where you can compromise your integrity or put out a different experience that's not consistent with ordinary. So this is where goals can backfire, right? Or setting unrealistic goals can actually produce less results. So it's about being able to find this balance and knowing, are you truly intrinsically motivated or extrinsically motivated? If you're extrinsically motivated, you have to figure out a different way to get you there. If you're intrinsic, you already sort of have that fire and you're going to go and drive and run through the wall. That's the way that I'm wired.
Yeah.
So be careful about setting up too lofty of a goals. It'll be totally counterproductive for how you show up in the world.
You've never had anyone set too big of goals for you and what you're doing.
Never.
Experience with that, right?
I have no idea.
And goals are never big enough. You got to keep shooting for the moon.
Correct, yeah.
I've known these two for a couple of years now, and I love them. But besides loving both of them for who they are, every time I talk to either one of them, I learn something.
I know. They're
and I've
so
said
smart.
that I've said that for years, but not yes, the
nerds.
They're dorks.
They're dorks. They're dorks. You're a nerd.
We like the word dorks today, right? No, but besides being that, okay, yes, they're very smart. But we were just talking. Ben and I were just talking before the show. You learn something, and I think that's one of the messages I like to get out to people too. If you can't learn something every day, if you can't have an interaction with people that you talk to every day, because in our business we talk to people all day long, every day, then you're falling short. And a lot of that is because we always think that we know everything, and we don't. And learn, listen, communicate, and learn something every day. You guys, when you're, on the front lines and you're managing agents and you're talking to people every day, and you notice or sense that they may be a little off, whatever off means in that particular moment or day. What do you do to kind of get them inspired or to get them, moving or thinking to do better, whatever the problem is? Because in our industry, it could be anything.
Yeah, of
right?
course. You never know what's going on.
Drama.
I mean, for me, it's never a one size fits all. I was just trying to think of a few different experiences, right? And it really, you have to meet people where they're at. There was an agent I spoke to recently who had best his point, a family member who passed. And it's funny because the way some things present is they come talking, wanting to do business goals.
Right.
But I have to have that feel that
Yeah.
this is going to be ineffective having a conversation about this if I don't just switch gears and be that caring person about them and their
100%.
their personal life, right? Other people want very structured worksheets that they can work off of and go and just want to do that. So I'm actually a little not miffed by the question, but I'm trying to think because there is no one way other than I think meeting people where they're at, and there's a lot of adaptability to be able to do that.
You answered properly.
Okay.
Because I think because I think that's
It's
where
the truth. Yeah.
Right, that's the truth. That's where you need to be. I mean, everybody is different. Every situation is going to be presented different. You might start here and end up here. It's just the way it is.
But some people wouldn't have the EQ to read the room, right? So what Ben
Very
is
true.
flagging is that the important thing is to actually adjust.
Yeah.
Maybe you're calling them out and saying, hey, Ben, I see you're showing up a little bit differently than I normally experience you. Is everything okay?
Yep.
And having that human check-in moment, or being able to then adapt your tone of voice, the language you're going to use. Maybe you're going to have a difficult conversation, so you're going to come at it from a different sort of tack. So being able to have that EQ and understand, okay, how do I modulate myself and my approach to the person that I'm getting, and not just the way that I understand them to be, but how am I getting that person today is so important then.
Jared's going to laugh because he's going to know who I'm talking about. But there was someone I worked with previously, and, taking this to an extreme, when I started coaching with this agent, I think I told him and a few other people, it is going to take at least a year for her to trust me. And I have to keep it to exactly what she needs. And,
Very important point.
and not try and overstep the bounds on, trying to do different things at that point. And that's a lot of patience to be able to do that. And it's so funny because at the time we were moving over here, she told me, she's like,
Can I
it took
come
me
to-
about a year and a half to trust you. I'm like, I know it was going to take that.
And can I come with you?
Yeah. Can I come with you?
Yeah.
So, the patience too with that and not trying to rush those things.
No, 100%. Best, wrap it up for us, please.
I don't know. I think it's, everything that Ben and Jared said is just so on point. I think, it's a tough time in the world right now. And I think, we have a lot of information coming at us, and anytime you listen to the news or read the news or social media, it's supposed to sort of inspire pain, rage, and anger, which is what it does. So I think we have to be very gentle with ourselves and not spend too much time in those dark places and do the things that make us feel our best selves. And if it's running a marathon and spending time with people we really like, or we have hobbies that we like, or traveling, we need to really lean into that because it's not a dress rehearsal. In my opinion, it's really you really want to live your days, in the way that you want to, and enjoy being with the people that you love and care about, work hard, and have a good time because it goes really quickly. And so, but you're blessed to be here, and so it's a real blessing to be here. And if you have your health, it's hard to complain about anything. right?
100%.
Sound like my grandma, yeah. My Bubby, yeah.
But well said.
No, I mean, it's just, it's what we do. And by the way, this is real estate. We sell real estate. We're not curing cancer. I know I love what we do, but, you have to put weight on things. It's not, life or death.
With that said, I want to say thank you to Bess for bringing these two, but thank you to Bess also for having, an incredible management team throughout Brown Harris Stevens. We are very lucky, and one of the reasons I'm here and not going anywhere. I said at the top of the show, we are family.
We are a community we are a community of warriors.
We really are, and our executive team is just beyond. So we're going to come right back after this message with my closing thoughts. Don't go away.
Hey, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you hear a lot about how crucial it is to have the right partners in this industry. At Roadway, we don't just move your clients, we give them an experience they'll love. Specialized services to our white glove treatment, it's all about making sure your clients feel taken care of every step of the way. And if you're looking for a rewarding referral program, reach out to me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back with my final thoughts. So I'm writing a book. It's a novel, but a fiction based on my life. In it, I say, I was a boy who wanted the world, became a man who learned the cost of chasing it, and a dreamer who discovered that sometimes the most important stage is the one that you build within. So that's my story. At the end of each day, reputation isn't just about how people see you, it's about how they experience you, both in your presence and your absence. It's built in small, consistent choices we make every day, how we show up, how we follow through, and how we test others when no one else is watching. In business and in life, your reputation can be the greatest asset of your biggest obstacle. The good news is you have more control over it than you think. By being intentional, authentic, and consistent, you can shape the story that arrives before you do, ensuring that when opportunity knocks, your reputation has always opened that door. So ask yourself, what do people say about me when I'm not in the room? And is that the story you want told? If it isn't, and the answer is not, you need to keep nurturing it, because rewriting it is imperative, because we must always, as I always say, be memorable, full stop. And that's our broadcast for today. Thanks to my guests for being here on set with me. You can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Substack, or TikTok. Good Lord. At Vince Rocco. John Wooten says, if you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network, to all of you all around the world, thanks for spending a part of your day with me. I am humbled. I am grateful. Keep thinking the good thoughts, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.